button.
We unplugged you, Fred.
First time I did it. Go on.
That was cruel, that was cruel.
Wait, what did he say?
We unplugged you.
Dean, you ready to start the recording?
Thumbs up, she's got it.
Okay. Heard the noise, though.
Recording in progress.
Oh. All right, I would like to welcome you and call to order the June 27th Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. And I would like to also remind us of our guiding principles and the actions we are about to take this evening. Are we raising the bar? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building connections with outside partners? And is the decision-making process positively impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a published agenda. Are there any amendments? I hope there are. Councilmember Rosapepe.
I'd like to make two changes to the agenda.
Let's take them one at a time.
Yes, one at a time, please.
All right.
One would be moving item F of the consent agenda to business item J.
Second.
And,
Oh, hold on. We
Yep,
got to vote
sorry.
on that one.
Yep.
I'm just writing it
oh,
down.
one at a time. I got it now.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to take consent item F and move it to business item, well,
J.
I-
J. Unless I missed
You're
that
messing
one.
me up because I already made a J, so we'll make
Okay.
that one J.
You can make a K. You make a K.
All right, and for any discussion of moving that? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we have moved item F, excuse me, yes, consent F to business item J. All right, and you have a second one, Councilmember Rosepepe.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to add under discussion items, a discussion on council resolutions.
I'll second that as well.
In particular, you want more descriptive of that?
That would be all right now.
And that would be, there we go, our discussion items. Got a motion to, what was that motion for?
Move for to add council resolutions as a discussion item.
Motion is second for that discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that has been added as a discussion item. And before we get to the last one, I just noticed Tony finally got.
Doesn't it look good?
Yes.
Doesn't that look
It's
great?
nice.
Thank you,
I was
Tony.
wondering if that was new or if it was new.
Looks great.
Read it without my glasses.
All right, is there at least one more addition to the agenda? Councilmember Clausen?
Mayor, we have an item on our table. It's a approval of change order number 5 to contract number C125-22 with KR Homes LLC for the Shroof Water Main Replacement Project. So I'd like to add that on to consent.
Consent? Oh, wow, okay. So we'll make that the new item F on consent.
Second.
Motion and a second to add the water main change order to the consent items. And further discussion of that? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None, and that has been added to the consent as the new item F. Any further modifications to the agenda this evening? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councilmember
Mayor, I
Cacciardi?
move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Cacciardi, a second by Councilmember Trineri to approve the agenda as amended. Discussion of the amended agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. The agenda has been set for this evening. We are to our first citizen comment period. This is for items on this evening's agenda, and we have a second citizen comment period at the end of the meeting for any item. And so anyone wishing to address the council, you'd have 3 minutes. And you'd walk to the microphone and state your name for the record. And those online, you could use the raise your hand feature and the clerk would bring you into the meeting. All right, we've got another citizen comment period at the end of the meeting. I will close this first citizen comment period. We are to our consent items. Councilmember Clausen.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
Motion and a second, and I think you meant to say as amended, so we have an
Well,
amended.
the approved consent agenda as
There we go.
amended, I guess. would be-
All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the amended consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been approved. We don't have any presentations, we don't have any public hearings, so let's get into these business items. The first of which is item A, adoption of an ordinance amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget and salary table. Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Mayor. Council. The City of Port Orchard biennial budget for 23-24, as adopted by ordinance number 46/2022, is written to capture revenue and expenses over the fiscal period. During the biennial period, changes to the budget in both revenue and expenditures need to be recognized by a budget amendment. Exhibit A of the ordinance number 46/22 of the 23-24 biennial budget identifies the personnel positions of the city as well as pay ranges. By this ordinance, the City Council would amend the 23-24 biennial budget as previously adopted. And so I wanted to go over a couple things for the full council here. We did discuss this at the Finance Committee. And I do want to point out a few notes for this budget amendment. First, it trues up beginning fund balance from what was actually reported and recorded. And it results in an increase for all funds by about $15 million. We have some minor adjustments to interest earnings to allow for a nice, clean, even rounding for budgeting purposes. Then you have all 2024 ending fund balances changing to reflect both the increase in beginning fund balance as well as the other adjustments that were proposed in this amendment. So of the other adjustments, actually of that, so the ultimate reflection is an increase in ending fund balance for all funds by about $14.7 million. Overall, the total revenue and expense budget is being proposed to increase by $35 million for the biennium. And by significant funds, I just want to point out the general fund is roughly going to increase by about $7.8 million. The street operations fund will increase by about $1.8 million. Our REIT fund by $800,000. Our park impact fee fund by about roughly $500,000. The biggest increase is coming from our Fund 302, which is $16.5 million roughly, and we'll come in to talk about what that is. We have our Fund 304, which is $1.2 million, and then we have 421 for $315,000, 423 for $400,000, and lastly our sewer for $1.9 million. So a couple of the highlights of the impact of these funds is first, the Community Event Center. We are funding additional expenditures to continue that project along. And again, this budget amendment is truly a cleanup of all the contracts and actions this council has taken for the first 6 months of this year, along again with the increase in beginning fund balance. So for the Community Event Center, we're adding some additional park impact fee revenue as well as general fund revenue. We also have the Port Orchard Plaza design that has moved forward in the last couple of meetings, so we're adding additional $142,000 of park impact fee revenue for that project. We've talked about the splash pad previously and awarded a contract, and so this amendment is to increase park impact fee by about $250,000 towards that project. Again, this is what we talked about when we approved the original contract several months ago. The big change is City Hall construction. So for City Hall construction, I am proposing a $5 million transfer from the general fund to the capital construction fund for cash flow purposes only. We did some analysis and we believe that $5 million gets us through the end of this fiscal year. We anticipate selling bonds, LTGO bonds, to pay for the construction of the facility later in the fall this year. So the cash flow of $5 million just to get us to the bond sale. At that point, then we'll have bond proceeds for the project going forward. For the total project, we're estimating roughly $10.4 million will be needed for the City Hall construction, and as such, we'll need $10.4 million of bond proceeds to pay for that. Some smaller projects that are in here are the Givens Park project. We did receive a grant from the state for that for about $176,000. We're anticipating some donation money from Rotary for $150,000 to make up the total expense of that project. We still have some work to do with Rotary to establish an agreement of what that looks like, but we're preparing for it now since we did receive the grant. There would be some rec reserve money anticipated for that project to get into cash flow it along as we kind of work with Rotary to receive those funds for the project, and about $45,000. Lastly, we are truing up the roll-in property purchase, which we budgeted for in this biennial period as well as in our last biennial period. We did take some accounting transactions last fiscal year, which allowed us to purchase it in January of this fiscal year. So I'm reducing some of those accounting transactions in this biennial budget, which we've already taken place in the prior. So it's really a timing issue. We've already completed the purchase of the rolling property. It's really to true up the accounts to get them accurate about what actually took place. And so you'll see actually some reductions both on the general fund as well as the storm capital fund, because again, it was budgeted twice. So now I'm backing that off to show a true reflection of where these funds are at going forward for this biennial period. And then there's just some other minor adjustments for our TIPS, Bay Street pedestrian path right-of-way adjustments. Again, a timing issue. We had made some purchases at the end of last fiscal year, which we had already budgeted as part of the budgeting process for this fiscal year. So making adjustments again to really give us a true transparent perspective of how much funds and expenditure authority we need for these projects this 23-24 biennial budget. So those are the highlights and the real impacts of this ordinance. The last adjustment is, again, a reflection of action the council has already taken. After the budget was adopted in late December, I believe it was, we amended the salary schedule to allow for 2 code enforcement officers. Well, excuse me, let me back up. We had 2 code enforcement officers. We have redefined that to be a code enforcement officer for 1 and a code enforcement officer for number 2. We have filled those positions, so there was no change to the FTE count. It was titling, repositioning of the salaries and benefits, and there was no negative fiscal impact to the city. This amendment just captures that work that was already done in a prior resolution and ordinance. So with that, staff would recommend approval of the ordinance.
Lawson.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget as adopted by ordinance number 046-22.
Second.
By Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Pichardi. Councilmember Clausen, go ahead.
Just a couple comments, and I think Noe did a great job of explaining this in great terms. The one thing I think is important for the community to understand, a lot of this is we build the budget and adopt a budget with assumptions made on how some of our accounts are going to close out at the end of the year that you really don't know until you close out the end of the year. So an awful lot of this is just truing up what our assumptions were based on the actual closeout compared to the budget. And then the other thing I think is a related piece of information, and I'll just draw the council's attention to it. We have another item on the agenda on the declaring intent to reimburse ourselves. Noah mentioned the $5 million for cash flow for City Hall. That by adopting that other resolution, when we do issue bonds, we'll be able to take funds from that bond to help replenish some of that. So those are just the 2 comments I want to make. Thank you.
Yeah. Other comments or questions? I know this was vetted at the Finance Committee here earlier this month. So. All right, you'll be voting on an ordinance amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget and salary table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the budget amendment has been passed. Item B, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with County Line Construction, LLC, for the abatement of code violations occurring at Southeast Crawford Road. Ms. Archer, this is you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you this evening is a resolution authorizing payment to a vendor to abate code violations occurring at private road Crawford, Southeast Crawford Road within the city. Council will recall a year or so ago, you authorized the city to engage in litigation associated with code enforcement actions in this area. And the city has pursued code enforcement through all available means. Now we are at the point where we are authorized to enter the property and abate the violations yourself, which is sometimes the outcome of these processes when you do not have voluntary compliance. The cost associated with the activity, the abatement activity when we enter the property, may be in part leaned against the property, and recovery of those would follow normal paths associated with liens. So staff wanted to be very transparent about the costs associated with code enforcement abatement. While we may pursue those through our lien authority, for us to actually be paid out, it takes either the foreclosure of the property or a sale of the property, and it's unclear if either are coming in the near future. The work associated with this code enforcement action includes the removal of quite a few vehicles along the private road that are preventing fire from accessing the homes on that road, as well as garbage service from that road. The work also is associated with a structure that has been deemed a dangerous building and needs to be removed, demolished and removed. And additional cleanup work on that road. Once the cleanup is done, all of the nuisance conditions in that area will be removed, and the area will function in a much more positive way. So, in order to procure this work, staff utilized the small works process, and in response to that procurement process, County Line Construction was identified as the lowest bidder at $76,510.57 for, again, the removal of those vehicles and the demolition of the home, or the structure rather, and removal of that demolished material. Staff's recommendation is to approve that low bidder, County Line Construction, in the amount of $76,510.57. And in accordance with the city's procedures, this is being done by a resolution. And I'm happy to stand for any questions on this.
Rose Pepe.
A couple of questions, Charlie. First of all, is anybody living in that residential structure right now?
My understanding is they are not.
Okay, and my second question is, do you know if we're providing any public safety for County Line Construction?
Oh, public safety to attend while County Line
Yes.
is doing the work. I do not believe that has been, we've gotten to that point in the discussion yet as far as County Line's comfort level. That was not part of their bid submission, was a request for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with County Line Construction, LLC, for the Crawford Road abatement in the amount of $76,510.57.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Diener, second by Councilmember Rosa Pepe. It's unfortunate when we have to take steps as drastic as this, but, you know, our paramount duty is the health and safety of our community. And this is a disaster out there. And emergency vehicles can't get to homes, and we need to do something about it. And this has been going, you know, this abatement process and code enforcement action's been going on for a number of years, 4 or 5 years at least. And, you know, sometimes we have to take these kind of steps, and hopefully it wakes up others that we're serious about these types of matters, and we won't have to take these actions very often. And so, Councilmember Lucarelli, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, what would keep us from putting liens on these properties?
We will put liens on them. It's just, it's likely not going to sell in a traditional manner. And so
Yeah.
then we can probably recover some or all of our money. But it's not likely that we're going to get much of our money back, if any.
And we'll only have priority in our lien in a small amount of that lien, and it's unclear what other encumbrances are on the title for those property.
Likely not really worth much, yeah. So, Other questions, Councilmember?
I just was going to say, I also think it's unfortunate that properties can get away from the owners like this, and sometimes it's a cascading effect, and, you know, life gets in the way, and suddenly there's nothing somebody can do about it. But I will comment that the scope of work I thought was really well done and results in a good product after County Line is done with their work.
Other comments or questions? All right, you'll be voting on the adoption of a resolution approving a contract with County Line Construction for the abatement of code violations occurring at Southeast Crawford Road. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution has been approved, and so is the contract. To item C, adoption of a resolution declaring intent to be reimbursed for capital expenditures from a future borrowing. Mr. Crocker, this is you.
Thank you, Mayor. The city has authorized a contract to make capital improvements to the City Hall. The city intends to make expenditures for the City Hall project prior to the bond proceeds being available. This resolution before you allows us the flexibility to reimburse ourselves from bond proceeds. So you actually have to make a declaration of your intent. If you intend on doing a future tax-exempt borrowing and using those proceeds to pay for expenditures that you made prior to the issuance of that debt. So this resolution is performing that function for us. Again, just builds in flexibility. I did want to point out that in this resolution, we are authorizing for no more than $11 million. And if you recall, a few moments ago, I talked about the $10.4 million in the project budget. So you're probably wondering what that additional $600,000 difference is. We've already incurred $600,000 of design expenditures that we could potentially be reimbursed back from the bond proceeds. So we haven't made that determination yet. We're still working through our thought process as far as the total amount of bond proceeds we want to issue, and looking at the interest rate market. Does it make sense? So I want to give us full flexibility to reimburse ourselves for the entire cost of this project, and that's why I'm requesting up to $11 million.
Awesome.
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution declaring the city's intent to be reimbursed from future borrowing proceeds.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Trenary. Questions for Mr. Crocker? All right, just giving us maximum flexibility when we get to the end of the year and we go to do that borrowing. So you'll be voting on adoption of a resolution declaring intent for reimbursement for capital expenditures from a future borrowing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. We're to item D, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Aquatech LLC for the McCormick Woods Step System Retrofit Project. Mr. Lang.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As stated, this is for the McCormick Woods Step System Retrofit Project. First part of the staff report discusses the Small Works roster procurement process that Public Works staff followed. By the 2 p.m. June 9th, 2023 due date, the city received one proposal from Aquatech for a total amount of $143,657.42, applicable tax included. On June 12, 2023, the city's Public Works Department completed the MRSC mandatory bidder responsibility checklist, and after reviewing the proposal and verifying the contractor's information, Public Works staff determined Aquatech LLC met the requirements and criteria as described in the RFP and was the lowest responsive and qualified bidder for the project. The Public Works Department has confirmed that the bidding procedures for Public Works have been followed. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Aquatech LLC for the McCormick Woods Step System Retrofit Project in the amount of $143,657.42.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Aquatech LLC for the McCormick Woods Step System Retrofit Project.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lucarelli, second by Councilmember Cacciardi. Tony, so how many homes does this do? And I'm just curious how many remain, because there's about 700 houses, I think, when we started this process.
Yes, so this will do 15, and then we also are going to have a change order of 3 more that some latecomers have interest in converting as well. I think we have probably just over 100 left to do. Getting there, slowly but surely.
We're getting there, and you know, what we've done, I remember when we started this process, we had the nitrogen or odor that every time you drove down Old Clifton, you smelled it all the time because
Right.
septic situation that was going on our sewer line, which also ate up the sewer plants. So we're in a much better place than we were. We haven't gotten to all of them yet, but someday we will. Councilmember Rosa Pepe?
Just curious, is Aquatech, have they been putting these in?
Yes, they've done the last 5 years, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? You'll be voting on a resolution approving a contract with Aquatech LLC for the McCormick Woods Step System retrofit project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? None, so the contract has been approved. We're to item E, adoption of a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the Port of Bremerton for waterfront parking. Mr. Lang, this is you again.
Thank you. The city owns and operates an existing sewerage pump station located within the Port Orchard Harbor area and Sinclair Inlet. Port of Bremerton owns and operates the Port Orchard Marina adjacent to the city's sewerage pump station. The city has designed the Marina Pump Station project to replace the existing sewerage pump station, and the project will temporarily and permanently impact the port's property as well as adjacent waterfront parking. In 1996, the city and the port executed a memorandum of understanding to set forth parking assignments and responsibilities for the parking area. This MOU focused on the port's property, including Kitsap County parcel numbers, commonly known as lots 3 and 4. Which are used for water-dependent uses and waterfront parking, as well as the city's right-of-way and associated public parking. Due to the configuration of the waterfront and community events and business operations impacting parking in the area, in 2011, the city and the port entered into a new memorandum of agreement to supersede the 1996 MOU, setting forth terms to govern the city and the port's use, management, and revenue collection for the parking areas. Because the city's Marina Pump Station project to serve the residents of Port Orchard will impact the parking areas covered by the 2011 MOA, the city provided notice to the port of the proposal in January 2023. In response, in February 2023, the port provided notice to the city to its intent to withdraw from the 2011 MOA effective June 1st, 2023. The city and port negotiated the terms of the memorandum of agreement to set forth the terms and conditions by which the port will withdraw effective July 1st, 2023, and to establish the use, management, and operation of the waterfront parking areas. Staff recommends the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Port of Bremerton for waterfront parking.
Councilmember Trenary.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Port of Bremerton for waterfront parking.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Trenary, second by Councilmember Diener. In the simplest form, our DNR lease and property is where the Marina Pump Station is, and the lots down by the gazebo are the Port of Bremerton's property and DNR leases. And historically, it doesn't matter where we put the commuters, so we've traded and our lots, the use of our lots, and because our lots are right in front of their marina office and it's more convenient for their boaters. But with us rebuilding the Marina Pump Station, the community center, and the Kitsap Bank project coming soon, that we needed to unwind that agreement, and we're taking back our property, they're taking back their property. They're kind of contract with us for parking enforcement on those lots. What that looks like, we don't know. They know our machines are garbage and don't have really any value. They may use them for a period of time. We were already looking to replace those before this came about, and they're looking at different solutions, so we don't know exactly how you're going to buy your parking ticket and how we're going to enforce parking yet, but more to come on that. So, other questions, comments, concerns? Councilmember Chang?
I'm looking at the map on page 514, and is any of that parking going to be available for the park? or is it all Port of Bremerton? I
It's-
can't tell from the map.
You're talking about over by the gazebo?
Yeah.
Currently, it is signed for the park. It's their park. It's their parking lot. I haven't heard that they're going to take the park. The park is sacred to them also. The biggest change is that the commuters, which I went down there and counted, that lot since Southworth Ferry and COVID started up is probably at 50% capacity. So the marina patrons and the commuters are going to be commingled in the paid lot, and there'll be some sort of a pass like they currently have for the marina users that exempt them from. It just won't be quite as convenient because they're not right in front of their marina. Questions? All right, we've got a good relationship with the port. This did take a while, but it's because attorneys got involved in it, so. But we had to have an agreement. We have a good attorney, though, I'm not complaining. All right, you'll be voting on adoption of a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the Port of Bremerton for waterfront parking. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the MOU has been approved. We're to item F, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Rice Fergus Miller, Inc. for the City Hall Construction Support Services. Mr. Lang, this is you again.
Thank you. The city's Public Works Department determined that expert construction support services, a professional non-architectural and engineering service, are required for this project during the construction phase. Due to limited staff resources, the city desires the assistance of a consultant with the expertise and qualifications to provide these services. Because of the in-depth expertise and knowledge RFM has regarding the design and familiarity with the construction plans, city staff requests that the council waive procurement requirements for this contract and directly contract with RFM for this professional non-A&E service. Staff met with RFM to discuss, clarify, and develop the project understanding and associated contract terms. On June 16, 2023, RFM provided a defined scope of work and budget for City Hall construction management services in an amount not to exceed $373,430.22. On June 16, 2023, staff verified that RFM met the responsibility criteria and is not disqualified from working on this project. To quantify the cost of the proposal submitted by RFM, staff did an analysis of construction support services for this project. The results are as follows. The construction cost or bid for this project is $8,245,941. Consultant team services are typically estimated at 10% of the project cost. Approximately 10% would be $824,595, plus necessary subcontractors of another additional $97,000, which would equate to $921,595 for construction support services. The proposal submitted by RFM is below that threshold for anticipated expenses while providing all the services the city requires for the project. Staff recommends adoption of a resolution waiving procurement requirements and thereby approving and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Rice Fergus Miller, Inc. for the City Hall construction support services in an amount of $373,432 or $430.22.
Councilmember Chang.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Rice Fergus Miller, Inc. for City Hall construction support services.
Second.
By Councilmember Chang, a second by Councilmember Lucarelli. So Tony, this is likely the last step to get going. So when are we going to see some scaffolding and contractors?
I haven't heard anything on that, but I can find something out for you. I know there was some lead time on the materials of approximately 90 days, but I can check with Chris and see when they propose to do some internal or some roof work.
Last thing we want to do is take the windows out and then wait for the new
Right.
ones. Questions? This is for the construction support services related to the City Hall remodel contract. Any questions for Mr. Lang? All right. You'll be voting on a resolution approving a contract with Rice Fergus Miller, Inc. for the City Hall construction support services. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract has been approved. We're to item G, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Financial Consulting Solutions, Inc. Group for the sewer rate study. Mr. Lang?
Thank you. In February 2022, the city hired a consultant to conduct a general sewer plan update for the city's sanitary sewer system. During this process, the city identified a need to review and update the sewer rates. The city desires the assistance of a consultant with expertise in sewer rate study analysis. For the selection of this professional service on February 9th, 2023, pursuant to the city's procurement policies, as amended, the city's Public Works Department established a list of qualified consultants for the project from the MRSC 2023 consultant roster for the main category, financial services, and subcategory rate studies. On February 10th, 2023, the city's Public Works Department selected 4 qualified consultants from the MRSC 2023 consultant roster. On February 23rd, 2023, after reviewing the statement of qualifications and scoring the consultants, the city's Public Works Department selected Financial Consulting Solutions, or known as FCS Group, as the proposed consultant for the project. Public Works staff then met with the consultant to clarify the project understanding and the associated contract terms. On April 19th, 2023, FCS Group provided the city's Public Works Department with a viable proposal for the study. The city's Public Works staff, based upon overall qualifications, including statement of qualifications scoring, recommends the City Council approve Financial Consulting Solutions, DBA FCS Group, for the sewer rate study project. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Financial Consulting Solutions, or FCS Group, for a sewer rate study in an amount not to exceed $85,825.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Financial Consulting Solutions, Inc., DBA FCS Group, for a sewer rate study.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Lucarelli and a second by Councilmember Trenary. Any questions of Mr. Lang on this? I know we don't want to raise rates, but we need to make sure that we're covering the cost of our operations. So Councilmember Diener?
Have we worked with FCS Group before?
They're working on our storm comp plan now and also looking at capital projects and the
Okay.
rates for that too.
Okay.
Historically, Katie Isaacson has
That's-
done all of our work. She retired.
Okay, that's where I was headed with this. Okay, thank you.
Worked with us for years. Other questions? All right, you'll be voting on a resolution approving a contract for our sewer rate study. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract has been approved. Item H, approval of the May 16th City Council work study minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the May 16th minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Diener, a second by Councilmember Rosa Pepe, and I believe I'll have an abstention from Councilmember Kachardi. Any corrections or amendments to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the May 16th council work study minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
One abstention. We're to item I, which is the approval of the May 23rd council meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Mayor, move to approve the May 23rd, 2023 City Council meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
By Councilmember Rosa Pepe, a second by Councilmember Kachardi, and I believe I'll have an abstention by Councilmember Clausen. Any corrections or amendments to the meeting minutes? All in favor of approving the council meeting minutes of May 23rd, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstention from Councilmember Clausen. All right, we're previous consent item F is now our business item J, which is the approval of change order number 2 to contract number 075-22 with Secante Inc. for the McCormick Village Splash Pad Treatment Facility installation. Councilmember Rosepepe, you pulled this, so you want to make a motion or discuss your concern?
I'd like the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to execute change order number 2 to contract number C075-22. I know I'm going to mess that up. With Secante, thank you. Incorporated for the McCormick Woods Park Splash Pad Treatment Facility installation to increase the contract as amended by $9,173.60 for contract total of $738,696.45, applicable taxes included.
Second it.
By Councilmember Rosa Pepe, a second by Councilmember Diener. And Secante's easy in compared to Cacciardi or Putansu.
But it depends.
So you're the motion
No,
maker?
yes, council members, the only reason I asked this to be pulled off, it has, I don't see any issue with it. It was the fact that the splash pad has drawn a lot of attention. I just wanted to, that anytime we're making changes with this, with the splash pad, which is moving forward, that we're transparent to the public, that's all.
Tony, you want to describe for the public what the change order is about? It's about $9,000, I believe.
Yeah, so the additional size of the clear well, there was some insufficient subgrade, so they actually had to over excavate, put some appropriate material down and build that up so it could appropriately hold the clear well. Louver within the building needed to be changed, and also additional firewall needed to be added. And I think there was, excuse me, there was one other thing. Oh, the manifolds, the vaults that are outside the existing splash pad that hold the control panel and the solenoid vaults needed to be moved into the facility so they're not prone to freezing conditions. So they're better suited for in the building rather than in the ground.
Been a problem in the past.
Correct.
It froze and cracked all the.
Right, yeah, and there was some leaks that they're gonna need to address anyways, so it just made sense for them to move it into the facility.
Go ahead.
Mayor, just one last comment. Even without the splash pad, McCormick Woods Park is just being utilized to the maximum from parking and watching people use it. So it's been a great addition to the community.
Fabulous asset, and I can't wait for the village, the road for the village to be built and the additional parking. It's very much needed, and once that splash pad reopens, it's going to have a direct connection from the village right over into the park. It's going to be even more popular. All right, you'll be voting on the approval of change order number 2 with Secante.
Well, I did have a comment.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Missed you.
I appreciate actually what Councilmember Rosa Pepe has said about this project in the past, and I also appreciate that he took it off the consent agenda, because I did have heartburn with supporting this project, as you may remember. So for that reason, I will be voting against the change order.
Comments or questions? All right, you'll be voting on change order number 2 with Secante for the McCormick Village Splash Pad project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
It passes 6-1. We are to see here, we're to discussion items now. And Councilmember Rosa Pepe, you asked to add a discussion item related to a council resolution, and please take it away.
Thank you. Fellow council members, I would like to revisit a subject from the June 13th meeting, since we have a full council tonight. This subject is whether to pass a resolution regarding a levy or bond measure from another taxing authority. At our last meeting, we declined to put forth a motion regarding the South Kitsap Fire and Rescue upcoming levy. The general consensus was that the public should make up its own mind when it comes to voting for a levy or bond. I think that we need to revisit this for 3 reasons. First, the council has a long-standing history of voting on resolutions that impact the citizens of Port Orchard, including the Kitsap County Courthouse in 1968, to replacement of the 911 dispatch facility in 1996, to the more recent support of a school district bond and capital levy in 2018. These resolutions all centered on the positive impact to the citizens of Port Orchard. The second reason I'm asking us to revisit our discussion on whether or not to bring forth a resolution is that as important as a legislative body and elected representatives of our community, that our citizens know where we stand on these issues. It was said that we don't want to tell citizens how to vote. But the law doesn't allow us to tell citizens to vote yes or no, only that we as a council support the levy or bond. By not passing or defeating a resolution on an upcoming levy or bond that significantly impacts the citizens of Port Orchard, I would suggest that we are neglecting our roles as elected leaders in the community. Lastly, I am concerned that unless we are able to pass resolutions regarding initiatives when warranted, how can we in good faith ask other agencies, public and private, for their support when we remain neutral to their request? As I previously stated, I will always support the vote of the council, but I believe we need to be consistent bringing forth resolutions for a vote involving levies or bonds that impact the citizens of Port Orchard. Therefore, at our next meeting, I am asking the mayor to open a public hearing and bring forth resolution regarding the upcoming South Kitsap Fire and Rescue Services levy for a discussion and vote.
Ask actually that if you want a resolution at our next council meeting, that there would be a formal vote here this evening, whether we're going to put that on the agenda and do that. So, so that way we can notice it sufficiently and conduct allowing both sides to testify on the matter, and then potentially the city council takes a position on that. Councilmember Clausen?
Yeah, I'm not going to supplant the attorney or her advice, but based on my experience, I think, Mayor, you're absolutely correct. What we would need to do as a body is to agree to hold a hearing, at which point we would ask both sides of the issue, both for and against, to come present theirs. And at that point, we would make a decision. Generally, we would have a resolution available on either side. So whichever position the council wanted to take based on the testimony, we could adopt the appropriate resolution. And Mr. Rosepepe, if you want to make that as a motion, I'd be happy to second your motion.
Charlie, you raised your hand?
Just for a question for the attorney, I believe this is different, but can you explain just the difference to the council of, allowing testimony for or against something? Like we've had these discussions about candidates and other issues, and maybe where this is different than some of those where we can't allow public spaces for the consideration of voting yes or voting no against something?
Yeah, absolutely. So by state statute, the city is prohibited from using public spaces in furtherance of support or against a particular campaign, a particular candidate, or a particular piece of legislation that's before the voters. So once the filing date for those items has occurred, that whole time period until the election occurs, we are prohibited from using public space to make any statements for or against any of those things. That statute also has carve-outs or exceptions. And the chief exception that we're discussing this evening is where a legislative body wants to make a statement either in support or against a particular candidate or a particular piece of legislation. In order for you to do that, in order for the body to make a statement, we must offer both opponents and proponents of that particular legislation the opportunity to speak. And so, as Councilmember Clausen pointed out in the past with this city, and then in my experience with other agencies, what the process we follow is we have the council pass a motion to set a public hearing on the legislation. I then prepare resolutions for and against to bring to that meeting, since we typically have to move relatively quickly. The council would then we would need to offer the opportunity for proponents and for opponents to speak equal amounts of time. And then the council would go into, have a public deliberation from the dais and then vote on a resolution either in for or against. The statute spells out that process, and all of that must be done before that exemption to the prohibition against the use of public space kicks in. There are other exemptions as well, but I won't talk about them tonight.
No, it's perfect.
Okay. Other comments? And Councilmember Rosepepe, are you wishing to make a motion then to add a public hearing and deliberations to our next council meeting?
I would like to make that motion.
I would second
And there
it.
is
With just one question, is there a notice time requirement? Can we do it at the next council meeting, or does it have to be appropriate time for folks?
We can do it at the next council meeting, yes. The statute doesn't indicate it has to be 10 days or however much, and I think it will be more than enough. It'll be at least a week before your next meeting.
Couple weeks.
Couple weeks.
We have a motion and a second to hold a public hearing related to South Kitsap Fire and Rescue's levy, and hold a public hearing and deliberate whether to pass a resolution of support or not, is what I'm hearing. So, discussion of the motion on the floor? Maybe we should vote with a show of hands on this one, and so those in favor?
I was going to say, can I comment?
I
Okay.
was asking for that,
Okay.
yes, please do.
Okay, before the vote. I appreciate the history, and I wasn't here in '68, so I didn't know about that one. But I thought telling that it sounds like of the last school bond resolutions, of the last 3 votes, that only one of them went before council for discussion and hearing, it sounds like.
No, actually, I just pulled 3 out.
Okay.
There's a plethora
Okay.
of ones. I just was using them as an example. There was actually one also for a community pool that was years ago. And I thought that was interesting, but I didn't want to bring that one up.
All my years, this is the process, which is defined in state statute, that we've always abided by. We've held up a hearing, allowed both sides to provide testimony. John, you've got 42 years compared to my, 15, 16. That's our practice.
It has been during my term here, so yes.
Okay. Are we ready for the vote? Other comments? Okay. All in favor of holding the public hearing, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye, 6, all right. Opposed? All right, so it passes 6-1, and we will conduct that public hearing and deliberations on July 11th. All right, we'll move on now to our committee reports. I don't see a date set for economic development tourism, and I know the recent meeting was canceled. Utilities, I see, is on July 11th. Finance, have you given a report since the last meeting? You did, and most of what we,
I think most of our actions we have taken here to the table and have been acted upon,
this
so.
evening, that's correct. Transportation, you met tonight, so Councilmember Chang, do you have a report?
Yeah, I'll see if I can read my notes. We spoke about the Bethel Phase 1 coming in July. That's, is that starting in July? Or something's coming to council. We're getting an update on that
Yes.
in July. The citywide paving is underway. You may have noticed the overlay on Clifton and the area that they're calling Walberry, which is between Walmart, Salmonberry, and Blueberry.
And that paving will actually happen Friday night, after hours.
Thought it was,
Did it already happen?
no, it was stated as coming Thursday instead of,
It's happening this Thursday night.
Yeah.
Thursday
Yeah.
now.
Thursday
Okay,
night,
It's been a
yeah.
moving target.
Okay, let's see. This was there. Okay, yeah. They mentioned the SROF update that we voted on, or SROOF, and consent. Okay, then there was a discussion about the Bay Street pedestrian pathway west. And there's going to be a public outreach process that's going to come back with more, some ideas for council to mull over. They presented some potential routes, and this is the area of Bay Street west of the Foot Ferry to Port Orchard Boulevard. And then there was discussion of the path continuing up on Port Orchard Boulevard as well. So, yeah, there's a couple of alternatives that we should be hearing about. I think the timeline is that we will hear from them in September. They have a very ambitious outreach, which is the next few months of July and August, where they're going to stakeholders and residents. Then there was a discussion of expanding the map for the McCormick Woods golf courts. Currently, it's only through, I guess, the current boundaries, and this would include McCormick West. So it's sort of a map change, and we hear it's very popular, and there haven't been any complaints, at least that we haven't heard of. And then the last item we had a discussion on was in response to a citizen petition and letter regarding basically the traffic on the 700 block of Sydney Avenue, which is between Sydney and Tremont. And after much discussion, I believe we're proceeding with doing a study considering moving the speed limit from 35 to 25 and letting the petitioner know that this may involve, or actually will involve, the city taking back right-of-way in which has been encroached on by property owners. There may be lots of fences that are actually going into Sydney that should be cleared for this.
And hedges.
And hedges, yeah. And Mark or Scott, is there anything else?
I think you captured it.
I think, I'd just like to add that the right-of-way discussion had more to do with safe access for citizens to walk along the road, more so than the speed itself. So that's a situation where we have to have a correct amount of width to create a safe pathway for people to walk on. Right now, currently, that section of road does not have good pedestrian access, and that's one of the things in the letters that our citizens asked for, and we're complaining about it, is it is an unsafe area. So that's just something we're looking at.
So were we moving forward with that traffic study, or were we waiting until after that subdivision was developed, since it would be?
We were probably waiting.
Okay, okay, just wanted to confirm, thank you.
I was hoping I was going to ask you that question.
I think that was from you, that we were going to wait until after subdivision was developed.
I asked that of Chris, actually, and I didn't really get an answer.
Okay, so we want to wait, but we want to look into moving or advance or widening the right-of-way there. I think that was sort of the premise.
Yes.
Start the
Okay.
code enforcement
Right.
actions
Oh, okay.
first.
Okay.
That's going to take time.
Yeah, right.
And then wait till the additional houses get built, then do the
Then do
traffic,
the traffic
traffic study. So. Okay, is that it, Councilmember Shane?
Yes, that's it.
Right. Chimes and Lights, you met yesterday.
We did, and actually, we had a pretty robust discussion. I had heard about a potential run, 5K run that is being proposed for the day of the Festival of Chimes and Lights. However, a lot of our agreements made had to do with safety and how far out we should close the street. The business owners, they're concerned about lack of business and access to parking. It's a back and forth. The great thing is that we had people attending the meeting from both sides, and so there was a great discussion. More information to be obtained about the decision, and of course it isn't our decision per se. That is going to be a whole separate issue because it would be a separate event that the council would be asked to consider at some point. So anyways, it was a really great discussion because we had people there representing the business owners and then the Rotary Club that would like to put on the run. So that was a great part of the discussion. Another thing is looking for another Santa. I guess we just found one though, and that is pretty much it for the minute.
Land use meets on July 19th. Lodging tax advisory is to be determined, but I know Brandy's been investigating a piece of software that may improve our process, and it looks promising, and we're investigating whether or not it'll be appropriate to pay for that portion or majority of that software through lodging tax funds, so we're still evaluating that. Hadn't heard about this yet, so maybe we should have talked about this at the manager meeting tomorrow first, but anyway, more information to come. And the finance director's going, but how are we going to pay for it? We'll talk about it in the morning. So let's see here. Sewer advisory, your meeting hasn't been set.
September 20th, I believe.
September 20th, I hear. So maybe we can add that to the agenda. On to the mayor's report. Gosh, we've had a lot of good press in the last couple of days in the Kitsap Sun on over the weekend, I saw the news about Kitsap Bank's headquarters, which you guys all got a front row seat to. Yesterday, we hosted a meeting with Port of Bremerton Representative Derek Kilmer and the regional EPA administrator Casey Sixkiller, and that was in the paper today. Kitsap Transit was there. KEDA was there, the Chamber of Commerce was there, and we started with a roundtable discussion here in the Chamber of Commerce, and then the mayor got to go downtown and talk about all the cool projects we're doing downtown. And we started down by the Marina Pump Station and the Kitsap Bank project. We posed for a picture in front of Hank's Sheet Metal because that's why the EPA administrator was here, because the port just got a grant from the Brownsfield grant program to clean up the tanks and the contamination that exists underneath those buildings and around those buildings. So that should happen next year. And then we walked over to the Cheers site and showed that what was happening there. So it was a proud day for Port Orchard and all the things we've got going. It was cool to have federal representatives here, patting us on the back a bit and telling us, it's all about relationships and working together. Gosh, we had all of, the port, us, transit, everybody there, talking about our future. It was pretty cool.
Mayor, since you mentioned Cheers, what is the latest on that?
They're telling us they'll break ground in July and start the demolition and the cleanup of the property. There's contamination on that
Right.
site too.
So July, okay, thank you.
What day in July? I don't know.
No,
but
I'll
they told us
I'll take July 31st, I'll be happy.
Not the 4th.
Not on the 4th. No, yeah, it would be. But and I want to thank John, Mark, Noah, Charlie. You attended the AWC conference last week, and that meant a lot to me. What an experience. This past year as the president was truly something special. It provided opportunities, experiences that the Port Orchard mayor would probably never happen. Visiting the White House, meeting with federal representatives for every federal representative across our state, not just Derek Kilmer, but all of them. Meeting with the governor, discussing housing, homelessness, crime. And one meeting with the governor, I was told afterwards that I opened his eyes with data that I'd provide, around crime and police pursuits and the impacts it was having on our community. While we didn't get everything we wanted changed with the legislature, I believed I helped change the governor's narrative about police pursuits, which I think is pretty doggone cool. Some may question why I'm engaging in a high level on boards or being the president of an outside agency. It's about relationships. Whether it's the Association of Washington Cities or the Puget Sound Regional Council or any of our countywide agencies, you need good working relationships with other elected officials and to build trust. Because many of the policy boards that we get our funding from, other electeds and our peers sit on those boards. And to have a strong relationship, and when I come and tell our story, they believe me because they know me. And so I think it's so powerful to be involved at a high level at these agencies, and it helps make our city just creates visibility. It puts us in a spotlight. And while my time at AWC has come to an end, as the president has come to end, I know that I've built friendships and fostered relationships that will serve me and the city of Port Orchard for many, many years to come. So thank you for attending with me and sharing in with that.
Mayor, can I just add one quick comment to that?
Absolutely.
I was very impressed going to the annual meeting and listening, not only listening to Rob in his role as president, but in his relationships that you have established. I was very impressed with whoever was there. Rob knew them and knew where they were from and had a lot of, I won't say personal information, but knew a lot about each individual as he circulated and did his presidential duties. But there's something to relationships that I think is even more important, because we're not an island. our problems that we have in our community aren't unique to our community. And being able to have those relationships, to reach out to other communities to find out, what are you doing with this particular problem, saves us, in my opinion, a lot of effort, time, and money with potentially coming up with solutions to whatever the problems may be. So I compliment you, Rob. I think you did a great job. Certainly very impressed at your performance during your presidency there, but just your relationships that you've built. I congratulate you. Thank you.
I'd like to second that too. I mean, I've worked on the other side for government for quite a while, and I know how important it is to relationship build, and you've been doing a great job over the many months bringing back to us the relationships you have been building and what you've been securing for the city, and we're a lot better off because of it. So good work.
Appreciate that. And you're spot on, John. Association of Washington Cities twice a year has a mayor's exchange, and whether it's a tiny city in Eastern Washington or Tacoma or Seattle or us or Paulsbo, the scale is different, but our problems are very much the same. And I take something away from every one of those meetings, that how somebody else dealt with the same problem we're dealing with, or sharing how we dealt with it, and more often than not walking away from that meeting knowing we're doing the right thing, and we're probably actually doing it better than most cities. We've got a good team here, and I'm very proud of them.
I'll add also that I think that you've been pretty shrewd and diligent in going after funding sources and helping out with the community center in ways that we didn't expect, especially when we saw the cost of construction go up through the pandemic. So I've got to congratulate you on going after the funding as well.
I pull nose hair out at times. But Mayor Erickson was telling a similar story to Tremont this morning at a Housing Kitsap morning meeting. They just opened their Tremont project on 305 up there, and about 20 million. Ours was 23 million, and the same. I'll admit, when I campaigned to become the mayor the first time, I was going to solve that. And 6 months in, I was going, oh my goodness, how am I going to solve this? And it was relationships. And we had, I don't know how many funding, half a dozen funding sources, which was an accounting nightmare because every one of those funding sources has different rules. And hats off to our finance team and our public works team for when managing a colossal project and that, that beautiful asset we have, and our finance team for managing all those different funding sources with different rules, and we didn't have an audit finding. So that's huge. And the community center is going to be similar. We've gotten a little money here, a little money there. You get all those little things together, and all of a sudden you got enough to get it done. So it's an exciting project. And the bank's partnership. I mean, we wouldn't be here without Kitsap Bank, where we are, because Public Facilities District wouldn't have funded us. So I've got some sad news that you guys probably know. Our Public Works Director, Tony Lang, has accepted the general manager position at Manchester Water District. And Tony came to us, as a laborer in Public Works, and has worked hard, went back to school, and, bettered himself, and he's earned every promotion that he's gotten here at the city of Port Orchard. So I'm hire good people, and you got to let them grow, and I'm happy for you, Tony. So I plan to name Jackie Brown as the interim director, and we've currently advertised the position. So Tony will be here till the end of July.
2027, right?
2027, yeah.
I thought it was 8.
Tony's done a fabulous job. Many years with the city, but in a short period of time here as the Public Works Director, and somebody else recognized what we had and offered him a tremendous opportunity. So hats off to you, Tony. So that ends my mayor's report. So I will, where are we on this agenda? Department head directors reports. So Mr. Lang?
Thank you. Appreciate the kind words, and I'll try not to be emotional because I'm not very pretty when I cry. So I appreciate the support over the last 12 years from council and the mayor, and particularly my coworkers. That relationships mean a lot to me. So appreciate it. Okay, strike that. I can't do that anymore. I just want to commend Janine and Charlie as well on the last month or so of, the heavy lifting that they've done for Public Works Department. We've had a lot of agenda items coming forth before you. Charlie's been dealing with DNR leases, JARPAs, subleases, Port of Bremerton parking agreements. So I really appreciate the work that they've been doing. And then Janine has been very patient with us getting her documents, and even after you approve it, she has a lot of work to do with getting contracts signed, purchase orders signed, amendments, and distributing all that. So I really appreciate their work, so thank you.
Noah?
Well, since I don't know if this will be the last meeting I see, Tony, I just wanted to thank you for your time as Public Works Director. I was a part of the review panel that chose you, and like Rob said, you earned it, and you did a fabulous job for us, and you really held it down. And good luck to you in your next adventure, and you're just right down the road. So hopefully you come by again. For the council, I did want to mention talking about software improvements and all the good things that are going on in the city. We've talked about Laserfish for a few years now. We've made lots of improvements on document management, and so we've been specifically working in our AP finance department to go all electronic with our invoices and our routing system. So I made mention in this last email that you'll see more packets, individual packets with each council run, as we now have a paper packet and an electronic packet. So in the electronic packet is currently only my department. Again, we're working through the process, making sure we understand all the kinks, bugs of moving to that transition, make sure it's flowing properly, making sure all internal controls are still in place, and ensuring that as we add the next department to the electronic process, that we've already stumbled and hit our toes and have the questions and answers for them. So you might notice we have a few more packets in this one. You'll see that for a few more months, but hopefully before the end of the year, we'll get back to a single packet and route it all electronically. We'll gain an incredible amount of efficiencies in our document management, in our routing process, and in our accountability. So I'm really excited for that project to move forward. It's been a long time coming, almost 2 or 3 years. Feels like to me, because I'm always anxious for us to move there. So I'm very excited for that. So I just want to give you a heads up. That's why you see so many packets. And if you want to talk more about it, happy to discuss that later.
Charlie?
Thank you. Very briefly, I too attended the AWC conference and echo the sentiments about the role that you played in that organization, and it was wonderful to observe and see the connections that you've made. And to Tony and his team, he dramatically undersells the volume of work that they've been doing these past few months, and I know you will be sorely missed by those you and Heidi's work. So thank you.
Debbie?
Well, I'm not going to say anything about Tony because I'm still in denial, so we're not going there. But I just wanted to wish everybody a very safe and happy 4th of July.
Randy?
Just want to say, Tony, it's I think we kind of grew up together from Public Works on up, and yeah, you got somebody has some big shoes to fill because you've really have improved a lot of processes, including special events. So I'm glad that you waited until we got that process in order before you decided to move on your way. So that's all I have.
That, we're to our second citizen comment period. Is anybody wishing to address the council? You have 3 minutes. You can identify yourself for the record. And
good evening. My name is Chris Townsend. I live next to the Art Museum and Gallery. I wanted to say I live down on Bay Street. Your future plans for the waterfront looks amazing. For some reason, my 2 items are about crosswalks. I didn't intend for that to happen, but it did. The first one is the ones right here on Bay Street with the flags. What weirds me out is there's a permanent sign that says the lights are temporarily out of order. And I think it's been like that since for like a long time. Those flags haven't really done anything. I cross that street 8 times a day. I work at the marina for a boat club. I live right here and I volunteer with the theater, so constantly going across that street. And I'm glad we put in new crosswalk signs. If no one's told you yet, they're really loud. I can hear that beeping in my window at 2 in the morning and people up the street. I heard it walking here tonight, and I'm pretty sure I heard someone crossing from Safeway the other day. It's like, it's a good idea, but one of them is broken and it is just beeping 24/7. So at 2 in the morning, it's coming through my window, all my neighbors' window. So I like it, but if there was somebody that could just maybe turn the volume down, that'd be amazing. So that's all I got. Thank you guys. Tony, good luck out there. Yeah, all right.
So the Bay Street down here is a state highway, actually, so Tony will get a hold of the Washington Department of Transportation and let them know about that, so. And you're referring to what used to be the flashing beacons there across the road. They're just not functional anymore, and the state isn't gonna invest any money into that. So we are going to, when we rebuild Bay Street from Frederick from Frederick to City Hall here, we will have flashing, high visibility flashing beacons. That's the standard now, like there is down by the Bay Street Bistro. You'll end up at this tent, but I'm not certain what, if any, plans the state has for these other 2 crosswalks. And I cross it too all the time. You just got to have your head on a swivel because people don't seem to see you for some reason. I agree there. So, other individuals wishing to provide comment?
Hi, I'm Amy Durgan, and I live here in Port Orchard, downstairs from this guy. And I also wanted to just implore you to please, I work from home, and I also work for, I'm not saving lives or anything, but my job is very stressful. I'm a corporate travel agent, I'm a supervisor as well. So today, when New York was just, the constant loud beeping in the background of my life is torturing my existence. I now hear the beeping when I'm nowhere near the beeping. And I'm like, is it beeping? Do you guys hear that? Did you hear the beeping? It's making me crazy because I sit right in that window and work all day. So 12 hours a day of, it's just really, it's stressful. So yes, please, if anything, if you can just turn it down, because I am a huge fan of accessibility. I really love the direction that we're going with trying to be more inclusive and making it easier for people to access public spaces. I definitely want blind people to be able to cross the street safely, for sure, because yes, and those flags do serve a purpose. I was telling him the other day, if a car comes into the crosswalk while you're in it, you just whack it. And then that driver no longer stops paying attention to the crosswalks of Bay Street. All of a sudden, you got another safe driver there. The second piece that I wanted to bring up is I know that there's going to be a lot of logistics when it comes to this community center down here in that big boardwalk. I remember one of the last council meeting that I was at prior, where you're discussing talking with Seattle about illuminating underneath and whatnot and all that stuff. One thing that I brought up individually and that I just wanted to bring before the council is, while we're still in the phase of development, I just want to bring up a public roller skating space, and just for guidance, the city of Port Orchard, or Port Angeles, their downtown area, they have a seasonal rink. Now they do something different, and that's more involved than what I'm suggesting, because they do a winter ice skating rink as well, and their community loves it, right? Because there's no skating rinks anywhere around here to roller skate for your family. You have to go to Fircrest, is the nearest one. So if you could be thinking in mind of and looking to them for guidance for what they're doing, just using existing public spaces to create a really interesting and fun program for the community. That's what they do every summer. They have a roller skating rink. It's logistically does sound involved, but it definitely is something that I think our community would love. So that's a suggestion that I wanted to make before the council, as well as beg for the beeping to be quiet, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Daniel, I encourage you, we love seeing you here. Come talk to us anytime, but you don't have to wait till Tuesday night to tell us that the beeper's broken down there. You know, come down to Public Works or call us.
I've been watching for you.
Yeah,
I've been watching for you to walk
I
your
know,
dog.
I walk
so
by
I
your
can
house
just
all
be
the
like,
time, I know.
Rob, please, can you
Yeah.
hear it?
Yeah, call Public Works or even stop down at the counter.
All right.
You don't have to wait till Tuesday night or wait till I walk by your house.
Yeah, also good looking out of the Public Works Department for getting the guy out of the street with the snow blower blowing the trash the day after the parade. Like, I was like, what an interesting way to get run over by a car. But yeah, that was good. Good job. Thank you.
You can also email cityhall@portorchardwa.gov.
Okay.
And the C-Click Fix app. There's an app that you can report this stuff to.
I'm on the app. I get the emails though.
Yeah, so all kinds of ways to communicate with us, including coming here. But you know, if it's been bugging you for 3 days, you're probably pretty pissed off by Tuesday, you know?
Not mad, because I just think of all of the blind people that are not being hit by cars right now.
All right. Well, last call for public comment. Anybody online or wishing to address the council? All right. With that, we're to good of the order. Is there any good of the order? Councilmember Chang? You?
I did notice the new lights, and I thought they were impressive because they tell you to wait or to go. But walking up the hill, I remember thinking, how do they ever stop? And I was glad I didn't live
Apparently
down on
not.
Bay Street. I was thinking, I wonder if I can hear that at my house, but I can't.
Councilmember
They are
Clausen?
loud.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with the council, we talked earlier about attending the AWC conference, and as part of the conference, other than there was a lot of sessions that had specific topics, there was also a display of vendors that had a lot of their products that they shared with folks. And there was a number of them that were quite impressive, but one in particular really caught my eye for a variety of reasons. One is these speed signs, the radar speed signs that post your speed. First off, you folks may already know this, but I was surprised at how, in my opinion, inexpensive they are. They're like $3,000 for a sign that has rechargeable batteries that will last for extended periods of time. The thing that was quite impressive to me was that not only do they display immediately what the speed of the vehicle is, but it also records that data so that you can look at is there a particular time of day that you have a problem? What is the highest speed? What's the average speed? A variety of things in the traffic or transportation committee, you were talking about speed limits, and I think that kind of information would be helpful. I know in the past we've used to do some evaluations where the police department would go out and try to determine what's the average speed, and then they would, I don't know, do arm wrestles with Public Works as compared to safe and that sort of thing. But something like this, I thought, would be a valuable tool for us. It's always, we get comments from neighborhoods about speeding, and we send our police department out, and they certainly do warnings to people, but the other option is to write tickets, where just conveying this information to the neighborhood might be helpful in drawing it to the neighbors' attentions that you are traveling too fast. So I would certainly like to see us look at possibly acquiring a couple of those. They attach easily to a the square posts that I'm sure Public Works use for a lot of our different signs, so they can be kind of portable. They last for, I think he was saying, up to a week on a single charge, and then you just recharge them. Or they have, for, if I remember correctly, it was like $3,700. You can get the one that have the solar panels that will just keep operating for long periods of time. But I wanted to share that with the council. I think there's a lot of great information that could be generated. That's great information to pass on. I know every time I go by one of those signs, I double check to make sure my speedometer is correct, which I can't really blame it on that, but I check. So anyway, I just wanted to share that, and I think it was a great 4 days that we were there, 3-4 days, and I think it was valuable. So thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, our meeting is adjourned.